Hi everyone, welcome back on the Sim Soaring Club channel. Today I want to show you some highlights from our latest group flight in the French Alps, and you're going to see some absolutely amazing scenery in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Snow on the peaks of the mountains, autumn colors in the valleys. It honestly looks fantastic. We had a great turnout. Over 30 pilots joined this one, all flying together in multiplayer, all hanging out in Discord voice. That's one of the best parts of these flights. You are not alone up there. We started this flight at Gap Tallard in southern France. Beautiful little airport surrounded by mountains in every direction. We all launch at the same time, and that is on purpose. We want everybody to see the same cloud positions and the same thermals. For this flight, we're all using the Sim Update 4 beta, because in that version, Asobo finally fixed the issue where clouds were out of sync between players. We're launching via tow plane. In this case, it's the Wilga towing us. The Wilga comes as part of the Got Friends AS33 package, which is the glider most of us were flying. Side note, Got Friends absolutely spoils us with top quality aircraft. Check out the video I made about the AS33 on this channel. You'll notice you can't actually see every other person's tow plane in the sim, so it looks like 30 gliders are yeeting into the sky by magic, which, to be fair, is fine. Look at this scenery already. This region is one of the biggest photogrammetry areas in the whole sim. It is using the new countryside tin tech that comes with MSFS 2024. We're flying this in October. The trees are in full autumn colors down low, and the tops of the mountains are already dusted in fresh snow. It's just gorgeous. I release from tow at around 3,000 feet above ground. Then I head straight for the nearest decent-looking cloud and start circling in the thermal. I'm getting around 6 to 8 knots of climb here, which is actually really solid for October conditions. While I'm circling, I'm watching the LX screen in the cockpit. You'll see little green dots drawing a kind of breadcrumb trail. That is the thermal tracker, and it shows you where the best lift was. The goal is to stay tightly centered in the strongest part of the column, so you get the best climb. I also keep checking the position of the cloud above me. In the sim, thermals tend to lean slightly upwind, because the cloud is drifting with the wind. So the best core is often on the windward side of the cloud, not directly under it. Down by the airport, there's this really distinctive ridge and some cool rock shapes. The terrain in this part of France is insanely detailed. You're gonna hear me say, "Look at that" about 40 times in this video. Sorry in advance. Up in the top left corner of the screen, you'll see Discord names popping up. That's the live voice chat. It is mostly friendly trash talk. Look at all the glider nameplates here. So many pilots all sharing the same air. It is honestly such a good feeling to fly in a big gaggle like this. I stay in this first thermal until I reach a decent height. For this task, we have a max start altitude of 5,000 feet. The task gate opens 20 minutes after the general launch, and I'm about to give the group the start countdown on voice. You'll see a clock on my LX screen in the bottom left. That's what I'm watching. I drift slowly toward the start gate. On the LX map, you'll notice a dotted line pointing at the start cylinder. It's shaped like a D. I'm actually gonna start a little late, even though I made this task, just so I can film other gliders. I use the spoilers to lose a bit of altitude. Spoilers are those panels on the wings that pop up into the airflow. They kill lift and add drag, so you can come down without overspeeding. Basically speed brakes, but for gliders. Now watch this. You can see a pack of gliders all funneling through the start gate, more or less together. We always try to start at the same time, so that people stay in a group and it's more fun. The goal at the start is to cross the gate just under the max allowed altitude and with as much speed as possible. Through the gate now, and the task timer has officially started. You'll see the nav computer confirm it. First thing I do is immediately moved to the windward side of this little ridge. The LX shows me wind coming from the right, so I'm staying on the side where that wind is hitting the slope. That gives me ridge lift. In soaring, we talk about energy in two forms. You've got altitude, which is potential energy, and you've got airspeed, which is kinetic energy. You can trade one for the other. You can dive to turn height into speed, or pull up and turn speed back into height. So if you start high and fast, you've basically given yourself a little energy bank for the first few kilometers. We're approaching this huge bright blue lake now. This is Lac de Serpenson. It's one of the largest artificial lakes in Western Europe. It's a big landmark in this area. Also, very important. You usually don't get usable thermals over water in the sim, so this is not the place to slow down and mess around. I stay fast and accept the sink so I can reach the next ridge. And that next ridge is steep and faces the wind nicely, so I know the lift is going to be good when I get there. Wind for this flight is coming from the south at about 15 knots, so basically perfect ridge conditions. We just follow the valleys and stay glued to the upwind slopes. We're using our custom SSC Soaring Weather presets for this flight, which make a massive difference in how fun and believable the flying is. The default live weather in MSFS can be hit or miss for gliding, so we built our own presets with proper ridge wind and realistic thermal strength. The steeper the terrain and the more straight on the wind hits it, the stronger the ridge lift you get. Now I'm starting to climb again. The Vario is showing almost 10 knots up here, which is fantastic. You'll also notice Chaz off to my right. Say hi to Chaz. He's been quietly cooking this whole flight. I keep checking the wind arrow on the LX screen. That little arrow is life. You always want to know your wind direction, because you want to be on the windward side of each ridge, not the lee side. You'll see that I'm flying fast in the sinky bits. That's on purpose. I already know the next ridge ahead is lined up better with the wind, so I'm basically sprinting to the good stuff. When I get there, I slow all the way down, drop into the lower flap settings, and milk the lift. Take a second and look at this terrain. The rocks here look insanely good. The trees in MSFS 2024 look miles better than they did in 2020. They're proper 3D trees, and they're the right kind for southern France too. That makes a huge difference when you're flying close to the slopes like this. I am also running the Bijan Seasons mod and a Southern France enhancement mod here. I'll put links to those in the description. Right now, I'm still mostly over forested slopes, which is not ideal. My goal is to climb above the tree line and start working the bare rock spines above me. I turn left here because I see some really steep, rocky faces that should work better. Unfortunately, I came in a bit too low to sit in the absolute prime lift band, so I have to accept weaker climbs, which costs time. You'll also notice I don't have a ton of spare speed here, and that's something you normally want to avoid in the mountains. Speed is safety. Speed is options. If something doesn't work, you want enough energy to turn and dive out. But I survived that section, and now I'm parked on a really nice slope, lined up perfectly with the southerly wind. I decide to stay and climb. It's a small deviation off course, but the reward is altitude, and altitude is everything out here. Axel and Mark make the same call, so I know I'm not being totally dumb. I'm watching my options. Do I keep pushing forward on task line? Or do I tank my average speed for 2 minutes and get an extra few hundred meters of height? I'm flying very slowly now, using a lot of flap, and I'm being really gentle with turns because I'm still quite low over terrain. The AS33 handles beautifully though, so it feels very stable. Climbing here actually pays off. I end up a bit higher than most of the guys in front of me. That gives me access to the next layer of ridges, and those ridges are way more aggressive. You'll see me slow down and go full flaps 4 or 5, and just hang there in rising air. At this point, we're getting into real alpine territory. Above the trees, above the cliffs, the lift just keeps getting better. Look at this ridge. Smooth faces, sharp edges, snow on top. You just know it's gonna work. Up ahead, I can see Mark and Mountain Man above me. They're in an even better position than I am right now. We're approaching Waypoint 1, which is near Barcelonette. Kind of a legendary area for soaring in real life. Lots of gliding history in this region. I zoom the LX map in just to make sure I don't miss the turn point. The Gottfriends AS33 lets you bind basically every knob and button to your joystick or throttle so you can keep hands-on controls, which is super useful when you're 20 meters from rock. I check the waypoint, then I ride the last bit of energy off this ridge before pushing northeast toward Waypoint 2. Now the terrain opens up a bit, and I've got a tailwind component, which is nice for cruise speed. I pick up the pace, but I try to respect V&E. If you overspeed the glider, you get a penalty when we score the flight later. Speaking of scoring, after we're done flying, everyone uploads their IGC file. That's basically the GPS track of the entire flight. We feed all those files into the B-21 task planner, and it auto-generates the results, applies penalties for overspeed or missed waypoints and all that. We're now moving into true high alpine terrain. Snow on the summits, huge vertical walls, deep valleys. This is why we do this in MSFS 2024. The mountain detail is just insane. No other sim gives you this kind of terrain fidelity at this scale. I've still got a bit of tailwind in this valley, so the ridge lift is not perfect, but I manage it. I pull up in the good air, where the Vario beeps, and then I dive through the sinky bits, staying fast. I spot Rue just above me. The view here is unreal. Flying nose to tail with another glider in this kind of terrain is just pure joy. You feel like you're in a Red Bull commercial, except nobody is paying you. Off to the right, there's Ganja, a little further out in the middle of the valley. I'm not totally sure why he's that far from the ridge. He's brave. I'd be hugging the terrain for more lift. Ahead of me is Larry, one of the really fast pilots in our club. He started a few minutes earlier than I did, so I'm feeling pretty good about my task time. We're closing in on Waypoint 2 now. It's high on the ridge, so I still need a bit more altitude. And here comes Rue again. Super close. The glider does actually have FLARM, which is a collision alert system that warns you about other gliders in your vicinity, but I turned it off because I didn't want a bunch of warnings inside the cockpit every 5 seconds. I arrive at Waypoint 2 just behind Larry. You'll see his shadow crossing in front of me. We basically turn the waypoint at the same time. I drop flaps and snap a sharp turn so I don't waste distance. Now, I have to be careful for a second because I drift onto the lee side of the ridge. The lee side is where the air is tumbling down and you get sink and turbulence. You really don't want to hang out there. I punch through it as fast as I can. From here, it's super important to plan the next leg. I'm looking down at the LX moving map, trying to picture which ridges are best aligned with this southerly wind. You always want to move from energy line to energy line, not just fly in a straight line like an autopilot. You'll see me try to grab some external camera shots here for the video, which is always spicy because when you're filming, you're not watching your speed and suddenly the V&E alarm starts yelling at you. Content creator problems. We cross a wider valley now, and I see rough approach off to my left. I'm already thinking about how interesting it will be to compare all the IGC logs afterward. That's one of my favorite parts. You can replay everybody's flight, study their choices, and shamelessly steal their technique for next time. There are a couple different possible lines here. Rue decides to deviate a little to the right because he's spotted what looks like a good energy line that carries straight into the next waypoint. I decide to stay closer to the main task line and just work the sharp peaks directly in front of me. Axel, Mark, Mountain Man, Smithy, Rough Approach are all right ahead of me now. Back on the ridge, back in good lift. We need that, because the next section has some pretty intimidating terrain. Also, can we just take a second again and appreciate how ridiculous this looks? This is some of the most detailed mountain mesh in the sim. I really hope Asobo keeps expanding this new countryside photogrammetry tech. City updates are cool, but glider pilots and bush pilots live out here in the mountains, not downtown. You'll also notice there is way less terrain LOD popping in MSFS 2024 compared to 2020. In the old sim, you'd sometimes see cliffs changing shape in front of you. 2024 is a lot more stable, which is honestly one of the biggest upgrades for me. Now, I've got a bit of a wall in front of me. I really need one more good climb to clear this. Luckily, this ridge is steep and the wind is hitting it almost straight on. Perfect. The Vario lights up again. I slow right down, drop flaps, and climb. Mark is a bit higher than me, so he can just cruise straight over the saddle. I have to turn slightly left and find a lower crossing point. But look at this view. Snow on the peaks, exposed rock in the middle, and green valleys below. MSFS 2024 finally does seasonal snow in a believable way. You get snow on the high peaks where it belongs, but the valley floors are still mostly autumn colors. It's such an upgrade from 2020, where it was often all or nothing. We're getting close to Waypoint 3 now, but I still need to snake around this last big lump of rock. This is where the LX comes in handy. You can switch the map source between Bing-style maps and Google-style terrain maps. The Google terrain layer is way more detailed, and that helps a lot when you're trying to read little passes and gaps between mountains. The good news is that at this point, I've got both height and speed. That means I have options. I can just hop straight over a lot of these obstacles instead of having to slalom through every little valley. Here at Waypoint 3, I make a tight turn to avoid flying any extra distance, then immediately get back onto the main ridge line for lift. There's Larry again, and Rue. So I know I'm still in the main pack. Now we're heading into probably the most dangerous looking part of the whole task. Between here and Waypoint 4, we've got to cross some of the highest terrain in this task. On Discord, we usually call this section Most Likely Time to Die. Very reassuring. But conditions today are honestly really good. Strong wind from the south, smooth air, predictable ridge lift, so I'm not too worried. I just keep picking ridges that are well oriented, and I climb on each one. While all this is happening, I'm just looking around at the terrain. The rock detail, the shape of the cliffs, the whole scene is just ridiculously good. By the way, we do flights like this multiple times per week. If you want to join, there's a link to the Sim Soaring Club Discord in the description. You are absolutely welcome, no matter if you're an experienced pilot or you're just starting out. We've now gained good altitude again, but the terrain in front of us is still massive. I pick a ridge that I think is getting hit almost perfectly by the wind, and I aim straight for it. I arrive fast enough to stay safe, but slow enough that when the Vario starts beeping, I can pull up and convert that speed back into height. And yeah, it works. I see Larry just above me slipping over the saddle like it's nothing. Now I've got Axel in view. Axel is probably the fastest pilot in our club. If he's in front of you, you are not catching him. Especially because after this, the last two legs are relatively easy and straightforward. Off to the right now, you can see Sestriere, which is a famous ski resort. Very cool spot to fly over. I get a nice little formation moment with Larry here. Almost wingtip to wingtip. Awesome stuff. We're approaching Waypoint 4. Axel is already around it, obviously. I almost turn a bit too early, but I catch it and check the point cleanly. Now it gets spicy, because everyone is coming straight at us on the opposite heading. So you'll see a lot of traffic now. Gliders everywhere. Larry and I are basically glued together at this point. From here on, it's basically the run home. We're following the valley system all the way back toward Gap Tallard. I pick up some more third-person footage here with Mountain Man nearby. At this stage of the task, the main job is to calculate your expected arrival height at the finish. For that, we set MacCready on the computer. MacCready is essentially a setting that tells the glide computer what climb rate you expect. A higher MacCready value assumes stronger lift and higher cruising speeds, so the computer will calculate a more aggressive, faster final glide. A lower value assumes weaker conditions and slower cruising, and the computer will give you a more conservative profile. You adjust it so the computer can tell you whether you have enough energy to reach the finish at a safe arrival height. On the final stretch of the task, we're gliding back over Lac de Serpenson, and it's honestly the perfect ending. You've got this huge blue lake filling the valley, surrounded by steep mountain walls and autumn colors on the lower slopes. The lighting is soft, the air is smooth, and you can see other gliders ahead and off to the side, all on final glide, all heading home together. After flying through high alpine terrain and scraping along ridges, this moment feels calm. We're all looking good on final glide now. We've got the height, so now it's a sprint. You'll notice Larry and Mountain Man sometimes pull up sharply for a second. That's because they're hitting VNE. VNE is never exceed speed, the structural limit of the glider. When the alarm goes off, you have to pull up and slow down. So we're all basically dancing on that line for the whole final leg. Mountain Man and I cut the most direct line back to the finish, even though it means flying through a bit of lee side sink behind this last hill. At this point, we both know we can afford it. It is all about seconds now. Larry joins us, and now it's 3 gliders, all full send, right on the red line. And that's it. 353 kilometers in the French Alps. Some of the best scenery the sim has to offer. Flying the high-quality AS-33 glider by Got Friends, in formation with more than 30 pilots on live voice, in beautiful October colors. If you enjoyed this, seriously, come fly with us. The link to the Sim Soaring Club Discord is in the description. Everyone is welcome. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.